Hey guys, this is Tauna. Today we have the deck list for the World Shaper Precon. So this is just released over on Command Zone, and we're going to be covering it here. They have essentially a very interesting list here, in my opinion. There's 12 new cards, which includes 2 new rares that they're finishing off a cycle with. And this precon is built around sacrificing your lands for value. And they actually went really hard on that sacrifice synergy, which I like. That's like, sacrifice is a big part of the precon, which is good. I think it makes it more unique than, say, for example, the one from OTJ. So let's get into it. First up, we've got the new cards here. We've got the Hearthhull, the World Seed, which we saw yesterday. So this is a spacecraft, which is meant to be the face commander. And thanks to the new rule, you can run this as your commander. So it's got, once you've stationed it for 2+, you can pay 1, tap it, sacrifice a land, draw 2 cards, and then you can play an additional land this turn. And then once you get 8+ charged counters on it, it's got flying, vigilance, haste, and then whenever you sacrifice a land, each opponent loses 2 life. The great thing about the vigilance here is that you can attack with it and then pay that 1 and tap it to sacrifice it afterwards, like sacrifice a land afterwards, because of the fact that, it's got vigilance. So you can still attack and then it's not tapped or anything, so you can then tap it down. We've got the Srazerol Genesis Shepherd, so he's got flying. You can play lands from your graveyard, and then whenever you sacrifice another non-token permanent during your turn, put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to Srazerol's power on up to 1 other target creature. So that's really good because now you can kind of take advantage of the fact that you're sacrificing your lands and stuff to buff things up. You want to get, obviously, some buffs on him if you're able to, but still, even putting 2+1s onto stuff is going to be useful. We've got Baloth Prime here, which is this creature enters with 6 tapped. This creature enters tapped with 6 stun counters on it, and then whenever you sacrifice a land, you're going to create a tapped 4/4 green beast creature token and untap this creature. So that's like the rampaging Baloth essentially. Then you can also pay for sacrifice a land to gain 2 life. It is a big 10/10. It's going to be quite easy for you to untap this, especially in this deck. So you're going to have a really big 10/10, potentially just swing, or even then, you could leave it untapped if you're not going to have a way to be able to sacrifice lands constantly, so that way you get that big 10/10 blocker. We've got the Exploration Brood ship here, another spacecraft or station. Once you've crewed it for 3, so it's got 3 charge counters on it, you may play an additional land on each of your turns. And then once it's got 8+, you can play a permanent spell from your graveyard by sacrificing a land in addition to playing its other costs once during each of your turns. So, a good way to be able to get some recursion in there, which is good. It's also a permanent spell, so technically, just any permanent, which is good. If you've, lost a creature, if you've lost an enchantment, whatever, you can play them from your graveyard then. We've got Evendo Brush Razor. So it's got, whenever you sacrifice a non-token permanent, exile the top card of your library, and then during each of your turns, you can play that as long as you've sacrificed a non-token permanent this turn. So, just essentially an extra impulse draw. I would probably prefer normal draw, but it's impulse draw, which is nice. But you can also pay, you can also tap him, sacrifice a land, and then add 2 red, which is good. Like an additional way to be able to sacrifice your lands for mana, which is nice. We've got Emudian Waste Waker here. Whenever this creature attacks, you and defending player each discard a card and or sacrifice a permanent. You draw a card for each land card put into the graveyard this way. So you can sacrifice your own lands with this to draw a card, or if you want to just discard a card, you can do that as well. It's also got Encore, so if it dies or you've discarded it or whatever, you can then pay to bring it back, exile it for each opponent, create a token that attacks that opponent, so everyone needs to sacrifice permanents. It's also sacrifice a permanent, so technically it can sacrifice itself. That would be on the attack though, so therefore you wouldn't get any damage in, but if that's what you want to do, you can do it. We've got Emudian Hatchery here. Tap it, pay 1 life, add black, and then you put a hatchling counter on it, and then whenever it's put into the graveyard, for each hatchling counter on it, you're going to get to create a 1/1. Just nice value from sacrificing your lands, and then you can recur it later on, bring it back, get more black mana from it by tapping it, and then just get more insects. Horizon Explorer, lands you control enter untapped. Great. I always love a good thing making all your lands enter untapped. And then whenever you attack a player, you're going to create a lander token, and that lander has, pay 2, tap it, sacrifice it, and then search your library for a basic, put it onto the battlefield tapped. I'm actually worried about how many basics are in this deck. There was a chunk, but I'm worried that there's not enough. We've got Planetary Annihilation. Each player chooses 6 lands they control, then sacrifices the rest, and then it deals 6 damage to each creature. So it's a board wipe for not just creatures. It's also going to board wipe a bunch of lands potentially, especially later in the game. Because you're planning on ramping and stuff like that, you most likely will have more lands than everyone else. But, it's still a good way to keep other ramping players in check. While I say you're going to be ramping, but then you're also sacrificing your lands. So you may be, down there in regards to how many lands you have anyway. We've got Scouring Swarm. This is very interesting. It's like a Scoot Swarm, but it's whenever you sacrifice a land. So whenever you sacrifice a land, create a tapped token that's a copy of this creature if there's 7 or more land cards in your graveyard. Otherwise, you're going to create a tapped 1/1 black insect creature token with flying. So it's like a kind of worse Scoot Swarm, but you can have both of them in the deck anyway, and create like a huge amount of insects. Then we've got these two here, which is the Festering Thicket and the Vernal Fen. I said before about them finishing rare land cycles. The Festering Thicket works towards finishing that, the cycle lands, and then the Vernal Fen is finishing the Tango lands, the ones that require 2 or more basic lands. Right now, if you guys are liking this content, make sure you subscribe. This is breaking speed, instant speed news. Only came out a couple hours ago while I was sleeping. And then I've made a video for it straight away. So, we get the best content here, the quickest content, if you want to keep up to date with as much Magic news as possible. Into the notable reprint, we've got Korvold. I was really shocked when I saw this. I was really I did not think they would reprint this within a Precon anytime soon, let alone, one that's going to synergize so insanely well with. Just a crazy reprint to see in here, Korvold. In fact, Korvold potentially is a better commander than the commanders from the actual deck because of how much sacrifice synergy is within this deck. Even then, he can sacrifice your lands himself too. We got Morag, Fury of Akoum, a great landfall card. Whenever a land enters, you get an additional combat phase. Always good, especially when you're getting additional lands, like heaps of additional lands from this deck. Like there's a few different things that are you can play an additional land this turn and stuff. We've got Oracle of Maldiah. We've got Braids Arisen Nightmare as well, which is one that I did not expect them to reprint in here. And then we've got Fabled Passage. Fabled Passage is just really good in this deck because it's just going to be 2 landfalls as well as a sacrifice trigger. And then there's a bunch that are here within the $4 to $2 mark. I didn't want to go in depth into too many of them, but there's just, a bunch of nice reprints in here too. The actual reprint value isn't huge. It was sitting at 76 US dollars currently. So it's not great, it's not groundbreaking, but it's still decent. There's still some decent stuff, but it's not all in regards to the actual value of it. Alrighty, now into the notable combos. They actually included an infinite in this deck, which is crazy. I'm really shocked by that. So between the Gitrog monster and Dakmor Salvage. So you need to have more cards in hand than above. So you have to discard during your cleanup step essentially. During your cleanup step, you're going to discard the Dakmor Salvage and any other card as needed down to your maximum hand size. Then when you discarded the Dakmor Salvage, you're going to draw a card, causing you to mill 2 cards because you replace it with this Dredge 2. You're going to mill 2 cards, then the Dakmor Salvage goes back into your hand. Then you're still above your maximum hand size, so you discard again. Discard the Dakmor Salvage, draw a card from Gitrog, replace that with the Dredge 2, and boom. So you've got infinite self-mill. So you're going to self-mill deck yourself, essentially. You can stop it at any time by not discarding the Dakmor Salvage, discard something else, but it lets you just fill up your your graveyard with as much stuff if you need, to make sure that you're able to reanimate it, play it from the graveyard, etc. There's a huge amount of things that are easily abusable by getting everything into your graveyard. Even like the actual Precon comes with Splendid Reclamation, so that's just reanimate all of your lands from your graveyard. So you can really, really abuse this very easily with the deck. So into some quick and dirty upgrades. This is not an upgrade guide. This is me just going through cards that I think are going to be great in the deck, and then I'll do an upgrade guide later on. Squander Resources is the first one. Just huge. Sacrifice a land. Add any mana that it could have made. It's a reserve list card, so it wasn't going to be reprinted in here, but it's absolutely bonkers in this deck. We've got Scape Shift. Sacrifice any number of lands, search your library for that many lands, and put them onto the battlefield tapped. Life from the Loam. Return up to 2 target land cards from your graveyard to your hand, but it's got that dredge, so you can dredge it, mill through your deck and stuff like that, and then it's also going to bring those lands back from your graveyard. It's a great card. I really like it a lot. We've got 6 here, has reach, and then whenever you attack, mill 3 cards, and then you can put a land card from among them into your hand, and then on your turn you can play lands from your graveyard with Retrace, which is good. Any non-land permanent will have Retrace. Yeah, I love 6. 6 is one of my favorite cards. Squander Resources again, because it's that good that you definitely need to grab it. We've got Scoot Swarm. Whenever a land you control enters, create a 1/1. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of it. Flood the board with heaps and heaps of Scoot Swarms. And then, you've also got the other one there that was like Scoot Swarm, but flying, but they enter tapped. Just get a huge amount of Scoots out, and then just be able to, run the board over with a whole bunch of 1/1s. Got Lord Windgrace. Really shocked that he wasn't reprinted in here, and I'll talk about him in a little bit. But he's, the OG land Jund commander. Discard a card, draw a card. If it's a land, you get to draw an additional card. You get to return lands from your battlefield, from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's great. And then you can also destroy up to 6 target permanents, non-land permanents, and then create 6 2/2 green cat warrior creature tokens with Forest Wall. Great card. Amazing card. We've got World Shaper here. Whenever he attacks, you may mill 3 cards, and then when he dies, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. It's the World Shaper Precon. Like, the Precon's literally called World Shaper, and it did not have World Shaper in it. I was really surprised by that. We've got Obnixilis the Fallen. Additional kind of landfall stuff. I think it's good. While the deck obviously is more focused around the sacrifice stuff, more landfall I think is a good idea as well. And he is a great black landfall card. Makes someone lose life. He gets bigger every time you landfall. So now Fabled Passage is target opponent loses 6 life, or 2 target opponents lose 3 life each, and then also put 6 +1/+1s onto him, which is great. He also came down in price recently as well. Elvish Reclaimer gets +2/+2 as long as there's 3 or more land cards in your graveyard. Pay 2, tap it, sacrifice a land, search your library for any land. So you get that sacrifice trigger. You're also, potentially getting a better land out. Like if you sacrifice a basic land, get out like a triome or something. If you upgrade it into a triome, do some great things with it. It's a great card for this deck. We've got Entish Restoration here. Sacrifice a land, search for either 2 basic lands or 2 or 3 if you control a power 4 or greater creature. Now, overall thoughts, I think the Precon is really solid out of the box. I think this is a great Precon. We've got that infinite in there. We've got everything that kind of synergize well with sacrificing lands. And I'm really glad that it focuses specifically on sacrificing lands rather than just lands entering the graveyard. So it really differentiates itself from the Thunder Junction land Precon, which was amazing Precon. So, I'm really considering getting this one as well. There's a lot of good reprints in here, though. And I really, really like the Hearthhull. I think Hearthhull is a great commander. I honestly think that it could potentially be better with Corvold as commander, because he's all about sacrificing and stuff. He lets you sacrifice your lands. He does everything you really want to. Just also better. I'm really shocked that he was reprinted here. And as I said, you know, there was a Jund land precon, which is the Wintergrace precon, and this really reminds me a lot of that, but just better and with bugs instead, like a huge amount of bugs. There's a bunch of really cool like insect synergies and stuff like that you could potentially add in if you wanted to go that route instead. It's just, I think, a really, really solid precon, and definitely kind of potentially worth getting if you are interested. In regards to like my top 10 precons list, I think this will probably go on that because it's just a great precon overall, and well crafted. And if you are the person who crafted this, thank you so much for that. You know, reach out to me, talk to me about Magic. But I'd love to hear from you guys or what your thoughts are. Have a great day and goodbye.